Coming up next, we're returning to a new show on the channel, one that has us diving deep into the catalogs of the greatest bands of all time and having them tell their stories to you via 5 essential tracks. This time around, though, we got a twist for you. Instead of just following the band, we're following the careers of 2 iconic musicians who epitomized the band and thereafter, including how they came up with a smash hit on the spot while playing a show. Just came to them. And how a throwaway track written by the guitarist to just tease his brother became one of the greatest sing-alongs of all time. Most importantly, though, we'll get into how the band name was taken from the singer and the guitarist, and tell you how one of the founding musicians has taken the so-called nuclear option to snuff them out. It's actually pretty cool. Coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember getting super high, a sugar high, from Fun Dip or Pixie Sticks growing up, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure that you subscribe below right now, click the big red button, and click the bell so you know when our interviews and our latest videos come out. That'll help you to know when that is. And also check us out on Patreon to help us keep it a daily channel and to curate new material. So it's time for another episode of our show, Evolution. On this show, we tell the story of a band, their career, through 5 defining tracks. Each set of songs is intended to take you on a journey through the band's sonic and artistic growth and their journey. Today, instead of featuring just one band, though, we're telling the story of 2 musicians whose careers have crisscrossed over the decades, from the band to where they went after that. They've been called the Lennon and McCartney of Canada, talking about Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman, or Bachman Cummings. And to start their story, we're beginning with the band that kicked it all off for this iconic pair, the Guess Who. Guess Who was Canada's most popular rock band of the 60s and early 70s, and they have their greatest commercial success from about 1969 to 1975. During that period, they released 11 studio albums and garnered 11 top 25 hits in the US. In Canada, they had 29 top 25 hits, including 5 number ones. They were first called Chad Allen and the Reflections in 1962, and they made waves with their single Shakin' All Over in 65.
Shaking all over.
So adopting the name The Guess Who, which came from putting a tape out there that said Guess Who, the band would then be led by explosive singer-guitarist Mr. Burton Cummings, along with guitarist Randy Bachman, along with Jim Kell on bass and Gary Peterson on drums. All right, so to kick things off with our first pick, we're going straight to album number 4, Wheatfield Soul. Released in March of '69, Wheatfield Soul is the first full-length Guess Who album to feature Burton Cummings exclusively on lead vocals without original lead singer Chad Allen. And featuring on this album is our pick, our first Evolution pick, their breakout single, These Eyes.
These eyes.
Now, These Eyes was written by Cummings and Bachman and reached number 1 in Canada and number 6 in America, the breakout there. Bachman started writing this song when he was waiting in the living room at the house of his date and future wife, Lorraine Stevenson. She was taking a long time getting ready, so Randy Bachman sat at the piano and wrote the beginning of the song. Now, Bachman says the song took him just 15 minutes to write once he sat down with bandmate Cummings. Here's what Burton had to say about it. Tell me how that song came out.
I hadn't even left home yet. It was on Bannerman Avenue at a little house in North End, Winnipeg. He had some pieces. I had some pieces.
He was calling it These Arms. Right?
Yeah, he wanted to call it These Arms.
For you, these arms.
And actually, interesting point here, I'm the keyboard player. Everybody thought that was my piano riff, that boom, boom, da-da-da-da. It wasn't, that was Randy's.
To hold you again.
For a guitar player to come up with that piano riff, I thought was very clever. It's a D minor 7 chord. For a guitar player to come up with that, I thought it was a great hook. So I'll give Randy his total due on that. But his lyrics weren't all that great. I always make a joke about it on stage. I say, well, Randy had some pieces and I had some pieces, and we squashed all the pieces together And then I refined his rather mediocre lyrics. I make a joke about it, but Randy and I were pretty good at squashing stuff together.
Right.
We never worked that hard on writing songs, not really.
As we get into our second pick here, actually, Randy Bachman, you actually pronounce his name Bachman. That's how he told me. I've talked to him several times, had the chance to interview him a couple times and do a live show with him. It's actually Bachman, but most people know it as Bachman, so he goes with Bachman, so I'm going to say it that way. So moving ahead to our second pick, we go to the year 1970 and the Guess Who's number 6 studio album. We got the band's most famous track, the number 1 smash, American Woman.
American woman, stay away from me.
And as the honorable mention, it's B-side, No Sugar Tonight, because it's kind of a double A-side.
No sugar tonight, but coffee.
Both of these songs are just too good, too iconic to leave out when recounting the Cummings-Bachman legacy. American Woman, sometimes mistaken in the U.S. as a song about American pride, or on the other end of the spectrum, a song ripping on America or a protest song. It really has nothing to do with any of these two things. It was written stream of consciousness on the spot, as Burton is going to tell us. But before that, just one quote to clear things up. Said Cummings about it, and I quote, "What was on my mind was that girls in the States seem to get older quicker, than our girls, and that made them sort of dangerous. When I said American Woman, stay away from me, I really meant Canadian Woman, I prefer you." American Woman was one of those 2 Guess Who songs that reached the pinnacle of the Hot 100. The other was the B-side, like I said, really a double A-side, No Sugar Tonight, which also received considerable radio airplay and was the last Guess Who hit that Randy played on. Here's what Burton told me about American Woman and what Randy told me about No Sugar Tonight.
American woman, stay away from me.
I love the story about how you guys wrote it. That's one of the greatest rock and roll stories of how a song came together. The curling rink show, Broom and Stone,
Broom
right?
and Stone,
Tell me that story. I love
Broom
it.
and Stone curling rink, Brampton, Ontario. We were doing 2 shows, so I guess we weren't that big yet because we were still doing 2 shows a night.
You're out in the parking lot.
It was
getting Gene Vincent.
between shows,
Yeah.
and I'm like, where do you do? You've done research, boy, I'll tell you. This guy was always a collector looking for the rare records.
Yeah.
And this guy knew that, I guess from the rumors and interviews I had done, and he had a bunch of Gene Vincent singles, some on 78, some on 45, and I wanted to get these. And I'm bargaining with this guy. I'm trying to cut some kind of a deal with him outside, and I hear the guys start up the second show. They're on stage already, and I say to this guy, "Look, I'm sorry, man, but I'm supposed to be up there on stage." I run in, and the guys had started this vamp. They had the riff going, and I just started singing whatever came into my head.
Yeah.
All that stuff about war machines and ghetto scenes and colored lights can hypnotize, just making it up. There was a kid there bootlegging the show on a cassette machine,
It
which
just
was
barely come out.
fairly new invention at the time,
Yeah.
a portable cassette machine. It was still pretty big. The guy had it on his shoulder. It was still pretty big to drag to a concert, but somehow we got a hold of the cassette later, listened to it. We thought that was a pretty good hook. They liked the fact that I was singing American Woman and blah, 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 and we ended up recording it. I might have changed a few lyrics later, but basically that's the way it came out on
Well, it
stage.
sounds very stream of conscience.
It
really
was. It
does.
was a stream of consciousness, one
Yeah.
of those Bob Dylan moments.
We had 4 gigs where we were the opening act for Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And Alice Cooper, who he had just discovered. And it was Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. We got to San Francisco. We had played our gig there. I went down to Haight-Ashbury the next day to see hippies. There was none there. It was Monday morning. The guy said, "Do you want to see that guy who was on Rolling Stone with the peace sign on his naked chest, blonde, beautiful blonde curly hair with flowers in his hair, playing a guitar, with the guitar open to get money?" He said, "That's at Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley." So I take the bus over to Berkeley. I'm there where the university is. I'm on Telegraph Avenue. I buy a bunch of vinyl in a head shop then, which was all bootleg. You had to get it, sneak it out, and put it in your car because the FBI was busting everyone because there was Neil Young and Bob Dylan Rolling Stone bootlegs and Beatle bootlegs out there. You go in and bought them and you had to smuggle them out. It was really cool. So I'm walking to put them in my car and 3 guys are coming at me and they're looking at me, giving me a real glare. And they're like ex-vets. You could tell they're veterans. They're older guys. They got bulging muscles, tattoos, ripped off sleeves. I'm wearing a little Canadian red maple leaf showing I'm a peace-loving Canadian. They all want to draft dodge to Canada and they're pissed off that we live in Canada. We're not being drafted. And we played our gigs and we're going right back home. So these 3 guys are giving me a glare like they're going to rip me apart. And I'm alone, going to put my vinyl in the trunk of the car. And as they get real close to me, this other little car pulls up with a wrecked muffler and they recognize the sound of this car. And out of these 3 macho men, 2 of them look at each other and leave. And there's 1 guy left standing there. And a woman gets out of the car about 5 feet tall and gets into the face of this guy who's not Mr. Macho anymore. His buddies are gone. He's standing there sheepishly looking at me, shrugs his shoulders, and she goes up to him and says, "You no good bum. You're supposed to be out looking for a job. I don't mean sitting, having a coffee, reading want ads. You're supposed to be getting a job. I know you're out here with your homies checking out all the chicks at university. You left me at home again with the kids. You didn't take out the garbage when you left." And she goes through this whole list of stuff. She said, "Get in the car." He gets in the car. She slams the door. He shrugs. She said, "Furthermore, baby, when you get home, you ain't getting no sugar tonight." And I go, wow, whatever that means. I know what that means. And I wrote no sugar. It was kind of a risky song.
In the silence of her mind.
So in 1970, Randy Bachman quit the Guess Who. At that time, apparently, he and Burton had been growing distant for a while. He also got sick. He had health problems. With his departure, the band, not surprisingly, began to make some changes with their next album, moving into more intricate arrangements and vocal harmonies and aiming for the new album rock format. The Guess Who brought in 2 guitarists from the Winnipeg rock scene, Kurt Winter from the band Brother and Greg Lescu from the band Wild Rice. So our third Evolution track comes from the first post-Bachman Guess Who album, Share the Land. It was released on October 5th, 1970. It's the record's title track. It was a number 2 hit in Canada and a top 10 entry here in the States on the Billboard Hot 100. The song Share the Land was inspired by the cover star. The album cover had a picture of the chief of the American Cherokees. Here's what Burton told me about the song. As we get into this, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I always wear. The coolest frames that Zenni has right now are their blue light glasses with multicolored lenses. A first of its kind innovation, blocks plus tins technology blocks more blue light than ever, filtering digital screen glare and UV light with 8 different tinted lenses to choose from. Just click on our info button right up here to get yours today. They're very cool. That's why I'm glad that records are making a comeback. I was always fascinated by the record. And I loved that cover. It was very
That was
mysterious.
the chief of the American Cherokees. He was almost 80 at the time, and we were early 20s, and there was a hill. We climbed up the hill to do the rest of the photo shoot, and he beat us all to the top of the hill. And he was almost 80, and I was like 21 or 22. This guy was in better shape than any of us. He told us he had been bitten by snakes so many times that he had a natural immunity. He was a fascinating guy. Fascinating guy. Handshake would break your hand. You know, he's an 80-year-old guy. There'd be no old folks home for that guy. You know, he was great. And that was a nice photo shoot. And I liked the cover. It kind of exemplified whatever those lyrics were. Maybe I'll be there to share the land.
Maybe I'll be there to share the land that they'll be giving away when we all live together.
I kind of liked that idea. That was RCA's idea. And for once, I thought they did a pretty good job.
Of course, Kurt Winter came in, and he was in a huge group at that time.
Brother.
Brother. They were like a super group, right?
They could have made it, I think, had their attitude been better, because they sure had the songs.
But it's the second time around the wood pile.
And then Greg came in too, and who now owns a studio, or did. I remember the Crash Test Dummies recorded there.
Superman never made any money.
You started writing with Kurt, and
Yeah, Kurt and I became very good friends.
Every day comes sunshine. Every day, everybody.
I was Never that really good friends with Cale or Peterson or Bachman. Not really. We worked together, but we weren't what you'd call friends. Kurt and I were real friends. We would get together and we'd get about 3 packs of Rothmans filter and about 48 cold beers and an acoustic guitar and my old upright piano, and we'd start partying and drinking and smoking. And usually by 2 a.m, there were 3 or 4 new songs.
Yeah.
That was what it was.
So for our 4th featured track, we're diverting to Randy Bachman's post-Guess Who career with Bachman Turner Overdrive, and You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Now, after Randy Bachman left the Guess Who in the summer of 1970, he resurfaced in 1971 with his brother Robbie Bachman, C.F. Fred Turner, and Chad Allen. So this group was called Brave Belt. And Brave Belt recorded 2 unsuccessful albums for Reprise Records in 1971 and 1972. Afterwards, Allen was replaced by another Bachman brother, Tim, actually Bachman's. In 1972, the new band renamed themselves Bachman Turner Overdrive, BTO, baby. They signed with Mercury in 1973 and released 2 albums that same year. They scored the number 12 hit Taking Care of Business from their second record. But it wasn't until their 3rd studio album, Not Fragile, in 1974, that they would find their greatest success. Not Fragile and its massive single, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, they both topped the charts in the US. Sung with a dramatized stutter by Randy, this track is an irresistible hard rocker with a grammatically incorrect title. We like it that way. Here's what Randy told me about the song. Number 1 smash. It was never intended to be anything but a joke.
Yeah.
Kind of teasing your brother, Gary, about his stutter. Tell us about that.
Well, it was a song that was left off the album. I used the song because I was producing the band to play a light rhythm part, to play a heavy rhythm part, to get a bass and drum sound. And then you're tweaking the mic and you're doing a playback of this song that is not really a song, but it's got parts in it that you know that they're going to be on the album. And so to lead the song, I start to sing nonsensically about a woman who took my heart away, and I start to stutter to tease my brother as just a brother-to-brother joke. And up comes the thing, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. I don't know where that came from. The song is left off the album. I mixed one version on a cassette. The guy who heard Taking Care of Business and said, yeah, leave the piano in. BTO, the piano is great. You're going to be singing this song, by the way, every day for the rest of your life. Are you going to love this song? And he said, you're going to love You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Put it on the album. So I played it for him. I said, there's no room on the album. It's classic rock. There's 4 songs aside. He said, I'll help you. Take the 4 longest 4-minute plus song, put them on one side, get the 4 shortest, and add this song in there. Put it on there. We put it on. It went to number 1 in 22 countries and was a BTO million-selling single. For an album rock band to have a single at that time, to be number 1 was amazing. And later I got an award from the American Stuttering Association as the best stuttering song of all time, beating out Benny and the Jets and My Generation and everything. So it was really a cool, great song. And there are many, many dance cool versions of that song as well.
So for our final pick on this edition of Evolution, we come back to Burton Cummings and the Guess Who. The band continued to release charting singles and albums in the early 70s, though there would continue to be more lineup changes. In 1972, Lesko and Kell left the group and were replaced by Don McDougall and Bill Wallace. In 1974, Winter and McDougall left and they were replaced by Dom Troiano, former James Gang guitarist. Then in 1975, Burton disbanded the Guess Who and began a solo career. This leads to our final Evolution track. From his 1976 self-titled debut, it's Stand Tall.
Stand tall, don't you fall.
Burton Cummings' first solo record reached number 5 in Canada and number 30 in the US. Stand Tall was its flagship single, reaching number 4 in Canada and number 1 on the Canadian AC charts. Also went to number 10 on the US Hot 100 chart and number 2 on the US AC charts. Stand Tall would also sell more than 1 million copies here in the States. It would prove to be the commercial high-water mark of Burton's solo career. His strongest single by far here in America, and one of just 2 top 10 hits in Canada.
God's sake, don't go and do something foolish.
While the song was climbing the charts, Casey Kasem reported on the American Top 40 that shortly following Cummings' departure from the Guess Who, his girlfriend of 9 years left him for another man. And Stand Tall came from Burton channeling his frustration and those challenges and despondency onto the piano, where he crafted the fine melody from the song. In 1979, a new Guess Who lineup featured Alan, Kell, McDougall, and 3 new members. They started recording and touring, though with little success. Similar regroupings without Cummings and Bachman continued over the years. A 1983 temporary Guess Who reunion gathered some interest and resulted in the album The Best of the Guess Who Live. But in 1986, the Guess Who's legacy got really complicated, really due to the band's original bassist Jim Kell. Kell, who had originally been fired back in 1972, discovered that the Guess Who, the name, had never been trademarked. So he filed an application to secure the name with the U.S. Trademark Office. Unbeknownst to the other original members, Kell then used his newly registered mark to start his own version of the Guess Who, calling it that. And Kell was joined by original drummer Gary Peterson in the late 80s. Now, when Kell retired in 2016, Peterson was left as the only original Guess Who member. However, since he didn't play every night, that meant that many shows with this band using the Guess Who moniker failed to feature not one single original band member. Not surprisingly, this irritated Burton Cummings to no end. I don't blame him. Both Cummings and Bachman contend that using the Guess Who name without any original band members misleads audiences and tarnishes the band's legacy. So Burton and Randy filed a lawsuit in October of 2023 against the current iteration of this band, claiming trademark infringement and false advertising. And in an almost unprecedented move, Burton Cummings gave up his royalties on the Guess Who's classic tracks to block the current Guess Who from playing his songs. Said Cummings about it, and I quote, "I'm willing to do anything to stop the fake band. They're taking Bachman and my life story and pretending that it's theirs. They're not the people who made these records, and they shouldn't act like they did. This doesn't stop this cover band from playing their shows. It just stops them from playing the songs I wrote. If the songs are performed by the fake Guess Who, they will be sued for every single occurrence." End of quote. Okay, so I got to clear a couple things up. 2 things that I will never understand. 1, how can this band call themselves the Guess Who without either Burton Cummings or Randy Bachman? I mean, in my opinion, they're the reason people love the Guess Who. They wrote the big hits. How can this band feel at all comfortable calling themselves the Guess Who when on any given night they don't have any original members of the band? I don't care who owns the band name. It's just wrong. It's morally wrong. And secondly, how in the hell is the original Guess Who band not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? We need to get them in. Who's with me here?
Mama, let me be.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman, the Guess Who, these classic songs and your memories. And what do you think about this using their band name? Let's have a great discussion. I don't understand how bands do that. They go out and tour and they don't have any original members. It's insane. That's just my take. What's your take? If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.